home your beef for the first time a couple months ago, brought it to a friend's house, and we cooked it. And after everybody took their first bite, we were just like, we looked at each other like, couldn't even speak. Oh my gosh, right? Some of the best meat I've ever tasted. It's like, how does this happen? Is it because we're in Colorado? Is it altitude? But it's not, because we're not super high up in altitude.
Yeah.
So many different things went through my brain. I'm like, wow, this is just so tasty. This is some of the greatest beef. And then automatically they just like went online and they ordered your Holy Cow Beef box.
Love that story.
Yeah, they're just like, oh my gosh, we
It's
want
working.
all of it. Yes. So thanks, Brad. Brad from Flying Bee Bar Ranch here in Colorado. Where exactly are we?
Strasburg, Colorado.
Strasburg, Colorado.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm here touring the farm because that's what I like to do. I want
That's what
to
you do.
shake the rancher's hand, shake the
Yep.
farmer's rancher's hand. And yeah, just listen to your story, because these days you go to the grocery store and there's like 20 different labels on 1 pound of ground beef.
hmm
And you're like, well, what does this all mean? Like, shouldn't beef just be beef? So anyway, so in chatting with you guys and learning a little bit about your story, it's all super interesting, and sort of a story that, you had all the cards against you, right? And you didn't have any knowledge into cattle
hmm
ranching.
Yeah,
So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you started Flying Bee Bar Ranch?
sure. Yeah, we have been called accidental ranchers, and I think
Yeah.
that's pretty accurate. About 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I was really obsessed with training and competing with field trial retrievers. It's, whistles and hand signals with dogs.
Mm,
And had been, was living in Denver, downtown Denver, and was spending a lot of time on the Eastern Plains training these dogs and leasing some ground out here, and just fell in love with this beautiful, sort of stark, but just elegant, nuanced landscape. And um, put on a search to see if there was a place we could find where we could buy something close enough to Denver that we can enjoy on the weekends. And we did. We found this place, this 100-year-old ranch, within like 45 minutes of Denver,
mm-hmm,
and it's been the perfect place for us. But it also came with Charles Robbins, who owned the ranch and sold it to us and adopted us.
mm,
We would not have made it without Charles. It's
mm-hmm,
a hard life.
mm-hmm,
The weather is hard. The terrain is unforgiving. The business is unforgiving. And Charles kind of took us under his wing and would come out every Saturday morning and jump in the ATV and go, let's go look at the cows, or let's go look at your fields, and let's go
mm-hmm.
look at your grass. And brilliant guy with an eighth grade school education who could pick up a clump of dirt and crumble it up his hands and tell me the story of what was going on in that field.
Oh
And
my
I was like,
gosh.
Charles, tell me what you're thinking right now. What are you
Yeah.
feeling in that
Just
dirt?
want
And
to
he taught,
siphon all the
yeah, yeah.
knowledge.
And he taught that to me. And
Mm-hmm.
I had him for about 10 years before he passed
Mm-hmm.
in 2015, and miss him every single day and owe a lot of this to him. But we were making it up as we went along. There are not a lot of models for what we do out there. There were not a lot of how-to manuals on how you grass-fed and grass-finish the animals. My background is planning and architecture, and so I wanted to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
This was really a land planning project, and I wanted to make sure we were doing it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So it was obviously going to be grass-fed, grass-finished, and we're animal people. So yes, these animals are going to be slaughtered, but we are going to treat them with honor and respect till
Mm-hmm.
that last day, and they're going to be dispatched
Mm-hmm.
in the most humane way, and it's instant. And I've said many times, on my 95th birthday, if I go that way, I am quite comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we have figured out each one of these pieces and parts. And 30 years ago, if you would have told me I was going to be a rancher, I would have said that's not going to happen. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
own this architecture firm and do my thing. And I was a city guy. I'm an urbanist, and beyond that, if you would have told me that my kids and my wife were going to work at that ranch, and we're a second generation ranch operation now, it's never know what's gonna happen. But
Mm-hmm.
what an incredible, exciting, interesting ride that we've been on.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's more fulfilling than something that maybe you would plan for and being in
No
architecture.
question. Oh,
Yeah.
this is so rewarding. It has so
Hmm.
shaped my life. Um, I'm working with the land, and I have another job in town. I'm the CEO at the National Western Center. It's about connecting urban and rural places
Hmm.
together and the future of food. And but I would never have be doing that if it wasn't for this. If it wasn't this background. I had a planning background and had cows. It's kind of crazy.
Hmm.
The TED Talk people called me in 2014 and said, "You're the planning director of one of the fastest growing cities in the United States, and you live on a cattle ranch." We
Hmm.
think that's weird. We're assuming there's some method behind that madness.
Hmm.
And there is. I think that we should all understand the urban place and we should all understand the rural place.
Hmm.
There's so much they have to share with each other and learn from each other.
Hmm.
And our political landscape today is the opposite of that, right?
Hmm.
The urban place doesn't understand the rural place doesn't understand the urban place.
Hmm.
And um, I would like to think that we here at Flying Bee Bar Ranch, where we make, we don't ship a half beef. Folks have to come here and pick it up. We'll ship you 2 steaks and 10 pounds of ground beef anywhere in the country. But if you're going to buy half beef, you're going to come out here. We get to, like we did this morning. You were here when our customers were coming out. Get to develop those relationships and have those conversations and take them out into the pasture. Talk to them about where the food comes from.
Hmm.
Um, that's a missing element for sure. And it is extremely rewarding to me. It
Yeah.
is so, it's not about making the money. It's about keeping this thing alive. It's
Hmm.
about keeping this thing, making this thing stable so it can be passed on to our son and our daughter.
Hmm.
And this can be here, when my grandkids are teenagers. And
Yeah. And you sort of lose that, when the in the meat section where you don't get to go to the farm, you get to go
yeah,
to the ranch or,
yeah,
put the face to the name and
yeah.
um, and so then there's a lot of label confusion with all of that. And how many labels do you guys have on your beef right now?
So um, we are American Grass-Fed Association
Mm-hmm.
certified. We're
Mm-hmm.
very heavily involved in that organization. Um, I think it's the gold standard. There are other good labels out there for what we value in terms of animal welfare and how the land is treated, and transparency, no chemicals, no additives, nothing, grass, water, and sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
They're the right fit for us. They're the toughest certification out
Mm-hmm.
there. So that's one I would suggest to your listeners is American Grass-Fed Association for sure. There are others. Animal Welfare Approved has a really good solid label as well. And there are a few others. But I would just recommend, just like you did when you came out to meet us and try our beef and kind of kick the tires and shake the rancher's hand, folks should do that.
Mm-hmm.
We got to feed a lot of people on the planet, a lot of people to feed. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we're a small producer. We're going to feed our community near and far, but our community. And they should learn where the food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
We're putting this in our bodies, right? So, what's in it? What what supported it? What does it support? What does
Mm-hmm.
it mean? Food is such a rich topic, right? Culture and tradition and relationship and
Mm-hmm.
connection. It's not just about getting the protein to survive. It's so much more. Enjoy that,
Right.
immerse yourself in it.
Yeah, and you say connection too, and I keep diving more and more down that path and just understanding, what connection means to me from, nature to food to everything. And so actually over the past few years I've started to hunt and to
Yeah,
engage in hunting and for myself just because I'm more curious, just kind of keep on, okay, like, what's the next step? What's the next step? Of sourcing quality meat and then okay, I want to talk to the ranchers and farmers. Okay, now taking it even further into like, all right, like what's it like to hunt
yeah,
and how that feels in my body when that
yeah,
happens, when I actually
yeah,
do, harvest them. And now I'm learning more about the butchering process. So then, okay, you get a fresh kill, then what does the butcher process look like? And
right.
all of these things are learning more and more about. And that's why I can appreciate people like yourself too. Maybe may not be hunting, but this, ranching lifestyle, you still have to do somewhat of it. like a
Yeah.
similar process. And so it's really nice to have that. And not everybody can be, or wants to be hunters, and that's totally fine
Yep.
too. We're
Yep.
not asking everybody to be hunters, and that's what a community is about. That's what connection is about, because we can all bring our strengths into our communities and share them,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so your strength, maybe you didn't even think so that it would be, happens to be just really quality farming, ranching, like taking care of just the soil, the grass, the animals. And I mean, they walked up to us, we were really close to
Yep.
them, and so they seemed like, I mean, I've been to places too where cows are just afraid of you. And so I almost feel like that is sort of a flag or a sign that, hey, are these animals treated okay?
Yep.
And so just that's something that you don't see on the label,
Right.
and so a lot of it can be, they're not very transparent. And so for me, it's like I want more of that connection. I also want more of that connection to the animal too, as well. So, and even just to learn, right? It's not like you have to be committed to anything, or
Hmm.
to a ranch. And so when you say that you just feed, the community, it's not like, sure, we want to feed this way of ranching. We can feed everybody, but not flying beef
Not
our
just
ranch,
us. Yeah.
right?
It's going to take a whole community of producers like us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We give that information away freely. I get that call all the time. Hey, can I pick your brain? I love that call. Come
Yeah.
on out to the ranch. Let's talk about how we got started. Let's talk about how hard it is. Yeah. It's about finding ways for lots of ranches like ours to
Mm-hmm.
exist out there in the world and to thrive and
Mm-hmm.
serve their small community of folks. We give this information away a lot. We get calls all the time. Hey, we're interested. How did you do this? And they're what's going to work for them is not everything that worked for us. These micro landscapes are
Right.
so unique and individual. However, I can talk about what you need to kind of expect. This has been hard.
Mm-hmm.
This has been really hard. There were many years of operating in the red and writing
Mm,
checks to keep it going and not giving up on it. Um, and we knew we had to get it to some kind of scale, and we're getting there where we can operate in the black, and I hope, and profitably, and people can, salaries can increase for our team. We can add more team members. Um, but I'd suggest to people wherever they are, go to the American Grass Fed Association website.
mm-hmm.
There's a map you can go on. You can see all the AGA producers. There's a great website called eatwild.com.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can go to your state. And it's all different species of meat there and animals. Um, there's room for everybody to thrive in this space
Mm-hmm.
for sure. um, we're just trying to do our part and do the best job we can in educating people, whether they buy from us or not. We hope they do, but if they don't and they've learned something and they go somewhere else and work with another producer, that's a win for our communities, our region, and our country and our planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what I love, is to just like find ranches like yourself, or, seek those that get that, that are just trying to do the best for their local community, and have the intention and have the care and have the core values that you and your
Yeah,
family hold about, just producing really quality, most nutrient dense foods on the planet, and then wanting to share that and spread the message. And I think that that is more, important for sure, is to keep on sharing how you did it, right?
yeah,
Because like you said, anybody can do it,
yeah,
with some dedication
yeah,
and hard work, because it's
yeah,
not easy, and just to be grateful. Like for me, from my perspective, I'm just like super grateful for our ranches, farmers, like those that feed me,
yeah,
because it is hard work.
yeah,
And even though I've been dabbling and looking into homesteading, and maybe, starting with some backyard chickens, as everybody does, um, it's definitely, it's a little bit, it's scary, because you don't know what you're doing, but
yeah.
it's very inspiring to hear that your story comes from, hey, I didn't know what I was doing
Well,
either.
grandpa didn't do this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So your mentor,
Charles Robbins. Yeah.
Charles Robbins. Um, so do you find that you have, this sort of, I don't know if it's like a mission in life to also share because of sort of how he mentored you
Yeah, he
too
was
as well.
such a teacher. And I
Mhm.
did his eulogy, and that's what I talked about. He was a
Mhm.
mentor and a teacher. Eighth grade school education, youngest kid of like nine kids. Um, and when he was supposed to go to ninth grade, went to work at Rocky Flats, which is probably where he got mesothelioma that killed him
Mm.
eventually. But uh, he was such a teacher, and he knew, and he sent his animals to a feedlot. He raised cattle here. He sent them to a feedlot, but he always kept a few back for himself that he finished on grass.
Mhm.
And he just knew so much about the soil and the land and the animals and the nature here. From the birds, we have an incredible birds of prey population here, a nesting pair of bald eagles just quarter mile from the house,
Mm.
and um, knew about the different types of soil. I remember I was building a pond here when we first got here, and I needed to find clay. And being an architect, I called an engineering company, a soils engineering, come out and drill a bunch of holes, test
Mhm.
holes, and tell me where the clay is. And Charles said, it's right up there in the northwest corner of that hillside.
Oh,
I'm like,
funny.
okay,
Yes.
whatever, Charles. Thank you very much. You know, $8,000 of soils engineering fees later, they're like, we found an area up on the northwest corner of that hillside. Where the
Right.
best, yeah, of course he knew.
Dang it.
Yeah,
Yes.
just a brilliant guy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
I mean, it's special. It's truly something that I feel, was placed here, to
yeah,
guide you to as well. So that's
yeah,
that's
for
really
sure.
special.
It does feel a little bit like destiny, but also feels like opportunity, and so fortunate
Mhm.
that for me, and for certainly for all of our family, and I know for you too,
Mhm.
I'm restored in nature. Like, life is hard, right? Life
Mhm.
is intense,
Mhm.
and it doesn't, we have to find the things that sustain us, spiritually and emotionally and physically. Um, and being in nature does for me. I
Mhm.
think it's why people want to put beehives and chickens in their backyards, right? They
Mhm.
they want to they want to put their hands in the dirt. They want to raise some
Mhm.
food. There's something very, very sort of reptilian brain connected to
Mhm.
primordian, if I'm saying that word right,
Mhm.
primal.
Mhm.
It about that is, that that connection to the earth,
Mhm.
and and everyone can have that in their food. You
Mhm.
can get that by learning about your food,
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah, and from a, connection and spiritual place, I do feel that more so than, I ever have in eating. It's just because I know exactly where it's coming from, and I know who, the hardworking hands that, was there
Yeah,
that provided me this meal. So I really appreciate that from a standpoint. And then shifting to just even, a taste perspective too. We
yeah,
talked about this a little bit.
yeah,
It's just like, now you can just taste connect. And
yeah,
it's not like you're disconnected where it's like every ground beef is like whatever, it's just another ground beef. It's like,
yeah,
no, like this comes from a specific ranch over here in,
yeah,
west, or sorry, east Colorado, and or east Denver.
yeah,
And so it's just really interesting to just find the taste bud connection, and not just like, spiritual connection. Whoops, I'm like, not a spiritual connection, but the taste connection too.
yeah.
And so do you eat other beef, like other farm and ranches beef, or do you just kind of
Um,
hone in on your own?
I don't I don't really eat any other protein
Mhm.
unless I know exactly where it came from.
Mhm.
Um, I'm 64 years old. I don't have joint pain.
Mhm.
I'm strong,
Mhm.
and when I if I eat something that isn't the quality, it'll completely wreck my gut for 2 days.
Mm. Mhm.
And so I'm pretty careful about that. If I know where it came from, absolutely. And I know lots of producers, and I love eating their stuff,
Yeah.
but pretty picky
Yeah.
about that. I think
That's
everybody
good.
should be picky about it.
Yeah,
I
I
want to
think
know
so
about it.
too.
I practice what I preach. I
Mhm.
know I know what's going in my body put it on
Hmm.
the end of a fork.
Yeah, I kind of say that too, similarly to how people shop for, their maybe family doctors or whatnot. Kind of should be that way for like ranchers and farmers,
Yeah,
right? Because
right.
it is ultimately your health.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about what you do do you work out or what's your like daily food like? Because I'm
Yeah.
very always interested in that too. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
well, what's your typical meal?
Yeah. So, I do not eat breakfast.
Okay.
My morning is I do push-ups and sit-ups, and then I walk out to the pond in our backyard and I do a
Hmm.
cold plunge every single morning,
Whoa.
65 days a year.
Oh my gosh.
This morning.
Wow, rain, snow,
Nope.
sleet,
Yeah.
hail,
Yeah. Yeah.
blizzard.
If it's below zero and blowing sideways, I'll miss that day. But
Yeah.
it is a pretty rare. I mean, through the ice, there was ice on the pond for 3 months this winter. I put an aerator out there that keeps a little stretch
Yeah.
open.
Okay.
The cold plunge thing, I know that's a craze right now.
Sure.
It is magical. It's like magical.
Yes.
So effective for me. So I do that 99% of the days.
Mm,
And being here is pretty physical.
mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
but I don't do as much of it as I used to when I was doing all
Mm-hmm.
the work here myself. Now with my son Will and
Mm-hmm.
Zach and others, they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So, um,
Well, what were
literally
you
and figuratively.
eating before you started ranching?
So, so I think the biggest change for me is that we, I sort of naturally, the better the quality of the protein I started consuming, the less I was interested in sugary things. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I historically have been a major carb consumer,
Mm-hmm.
major. And I don't know, it's probably been 3 years ago now. I'd been cutting back, but I'm less than 10 grams of carbs a day,
Oh, wow.
a
Mm-hmm.
very, very thin on the carbs.
Mm-hmm.
I find it just works better with my joints.
Mm,
Because that's really where I see people start to get old.
mm,
Joints start to not move without pain. And if you're not moving without pain, you're less mobile.
mm-hmm.
You're going to put on weight. You're going to lose muscle mass. So I really focus on that. And we eat unbelievably simple, simple things. If I lunch is either meat like we had today, a little hunk of rib steak and a
Yeah.
piece of flat iron for lunch. Dinner is beef or pork
Mm-hmm.
and a salad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then maybe, I do like scotch. I may have a scotch or two in the evening, but
Mm-hmm.
that's about the most unhealthy thing I do.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But prior to you guys starting the cattle, ranch and I guess before you started producing the meat, were you, what type of food were you eating before? I mean, I know it was
We
like
went to
carb
the we
heavy,
went to
but
the local grocery store and picked up whatever looked like tasted good.
yeah. And so then from then, so you feel like your health got better, like,
Oh, 100%.
mm-hmm.
No question. It was completely revolutionized what we were eating. I never
Yeah.
looked at a label in my life.
Mm,
Yeah, I
yeah.
wasn't paying attention to it at all.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It turned my health around. No question about it.
Mm-hmm. What a journey.
Yeah.
So I have a question. How do you get some of the best tasting meats that are in your products? It's just like it's incredible.
So we've really worked hard to make this easy and accessible because I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the biggest hurdles is
Mm-hmm.
how people get past sort of the intimidation of
Mm-hmm.
it, of buying directly from the ranch. We have a store right here. So if you're in the Denver metro area, we're 30 minutes, 40 minutes from downtown. We have a store here. But for most folks, it's flyingbeebar.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an online store there. If you buy $200 worth of our product, we will ship it for free anywhere in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, we we ship out probably anywhere from 150 to 180 or 190 boxes of beef a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have lots of people that buy an eighth, quarter, half, or whole beef. That's a lot of people you saw this morning. We're picking up, we call them custom orders.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably do 8 or 9 or 10 head a week that are in customs, and then 3 or 4 head a week that are in for our online store. And
Mhm.
we have beef and pork. We do not produce the pork. We work with another family that is American Grass-Fed Association
Mhm.
certified
Mhm.
on pork and lamb, um, and folks that we know and trust implicitly that don't want to go through the process of what uh, we've done and deal with customers, quite frankly, that want to raise animals.
Mhm. Mhm.
We have beef, pork, and lamb. We don't produce the pork or the
Mhm.
lamb. They're produced with other producers that we know and trust.
Mhm.
They're all pastured,
Mhm.
and the lamb is American Grass-Fed Association certified.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and our customers have been asking for that, and we've got our hands full with the cattle.
Mhm.
We can't, I'm able to figure out how to do hogs or
Mhm.
sheep or lamb or
Sure.
chickens yet. We'd love to
Yeah.
figure out chickens. If there's anyone out there that knows anybody that wants to partner with us on chickens, we'd love it.
Yeah. Well, this is
Um,
a good platform to like shout it out. Anybody,
yeah,
comment down below or share somebody who knows
yeah,
somebody in the Colorado
yeah,
area
yeah, we'd
for
love
that.
that.
Hmm.
But we really have this customer base that really relies on us because we tell them the truth, and we do what we say we're going to do,
Yeah.
and we stand behind our stuff, and we do the right thing when
Hmm.
nobody's looking. And
Hmm.
we've been doing that for 20 years, and they believe us.
Yeah, and that's really important too. It's as we talked about earlier, it's more than anything. I'm a big advocate for transparency, right? For instance, alcohol, right? We talked about
Yeah,
a little scotch or
yeah,
whatever. On there, on the label, at least it has warning signs.
yeah,
Everybody knows it's not a health
yeah,
supplement or a food. I mean, sure, sometimes in the moment it could
yeah,
maybe, I don't know, give you, I don't know, empower you to go dance or something
yeah,
like that, right? And that could also participate in
yeah,
a healthy, memories.
yeah,
Great. But we should have this on, all things food where it's like where, the transparency of what's actually in it. There are antibiotics, there are hormones in it, and what does this mean? And the internet is full of information on, and also bad information. So just careful for sourcing, but
yeah,
what this means for our bodies. And so instead of like trying to find these tricks and ways to like trick the customer into marketing, into buying, and thinking that it's healthy for you, this is what we want. And the, admission of just what is, what you're feeding your animals and how you're raising them. It's not even, nobody has to be perfect because there is no such thing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just, hey, are you going to keep searching for what's best for you, your community, your environment, the cows? Like you have all of these things to manage. And, I can't look for the perfect ranch or the perfect farm. It's like, but I can, look for a rancher or a farmer who has that intention at heart and who wants to keep evolving,
yeah,
who wants to keep learning, and in speaking to Will too earlier today, just about the progression of the ranch and moving forward in a positive direction and if you know better then do better sort of mentality
yeah,
is really important.
yeah,
So yeah, and so that's kind of where I try my best to find people like yourself who do that, because I can't be everything. I can't. I do my best to do things on my own, um even home cooked meals and all these things from scratch, but I can't have a cattle ranch right now,
yeah,
and so I can't do everything myself. And so therefore I do need to lean on others and to trust. And the
yeah.
trust is like huge.
It's huge.
And so, these videos are meant for you to just get to know your farmers and your ranchers and just understand that process and just trust them that they're going to make the right decisions for you. So I really,
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I think I find that, and I know all the farming and ranching families around here in this
Hmm.
region, and a lot of integrity, a lot of
Hmm.
integrity, and I do find they tell the truth.
Hmm.
They their word is their bond. They don't do written contracts out here. That the handshake,
Yeah.
it's a real thing.
Yeah. We
It's a
like
real
that.
thing.
We
Yeah,
want to go back to that
yeah,
sort of like,
yeah,
style
yeah,
of how we source our
yeah,
food.
yeah,
Okay, going back to my original question, you told me what meats you have here, but how do you really get it so mouth-watering? Like, what's the secret? Or is he trying to skirt the recipe of how to
Yep.
make the most like perfect steak, super balanced fat ratio? Like, um, most of your meat, I think, is like an 85-15, I
Yep.
guess.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but it's balanced too. There's a lot of meats out there that is just like sometimes sees like heavy after just even the mouth texture, it's like that's like too chewy or too fatty on this side. So we were out on the ranch today and you have Angus
Yep.
herd and then you have a Wagyu Angus crossbreed.
Yep.
So is that where it starts?
I think it starts with the grass, starts with the soil.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. It has to do with, I used the word earlier when we were talking terroir, that, it comes out of the soil and it's where that grass comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Genetics, we've worked really hard.
Mm-hmm.
We want to source our cattle in ways that are animals that are have a proclivity for marbling and putting weight on grass.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
different than an animal that you're going to for sure put on a really heavy
Mm-hmm.
corn diet,
Mm-hmm.
for the last whatever number of months. Um, so I think it's breeding. Um, we we've gotten, and we haven't always had, I mean, it's been an evolution. Our beef is better today than it was 5 years ago and better than it was 5 years before that. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
We have gotten better at understanding what a grass finished animal is,
Mm-hmm.
because for a long time, I think our beef wasn't as good as, in terms of fat content and tenderness
Mm-hmm.
as maybe you could get in at a meat market or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And that was absolutely a goal. I want to have the best steak you've ever tasted. And
Mm-hmm.
I would stack our steak up and our burger, anything,
Mm-hmm.
up against anybody else's anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
because we've gotten good at that and
Mm,
we've gotten consistent at it
mm,
too.
mhm,
It happens 99% of the time. That 99%, we just had a tough half last week's first one we've had in like a year.
mhm,
One of our longtime customers called and said, "Oh, it was tough. This was tough."
mm,
It happens. That happens. You bet. New half is ordered. We,
mhm,
no questions asked, replaced his half
mm,
beef. This is
mhm.
not, two steaks. We replaced the half
Sure.
beef and do that without question.
Wow.
And but we've gotten good at it, and it
Mhm.
doesn't happen very often. That's the good news. But when it does happen, we stand 100% behind it.
Well, you
S-
can't call up Tyson and ask for that, can
No, probably not. Probably not. And
probably
then
wouldn't want another quarter anyways after.
I,
No, thanks.
I think the other thing is, learning to cook grass-fed beef is a different thing.
Mm,
The fat is a completely different chemical composition. It's grass fat. It's coming out of
mhm,
grass protein, not from a corn fat. The science is different, and the science is this: it liquefies at a lower temperature.
mm,
And so that part of cooking, whether it's a burger or a roast or a steak, happens in a shorter period of time. So people say with grass-fed, grass-finished beef, it's too lean, so that's why it cooks faster. That's not true. The fat melts at a lower temperature, so
mm,
then you're doing two things. You're melting the fat and you're cooking the muscle fiber, the meat
mhm,
fiber. And so it does happen a little faster.
mm,
The other thing about it is that true grass finished beef that's fully finished well,
mhm,
when you cook it, it stays tender throughout the cook.
mm,
So the whole, oh, I know what medium
mm,
rare feels like doesn't apply. You have to use a meat thermometer.
mm,
Have to trust the science. I use a meat thermometer on everything. I use a meat thermometer on our hamburgers
mm,
because they will stay tender to the touch.
mm.
Um,
How do you like your burgers?
I pull my burgers at like 122 or 123 degrees.
So it's medium
Yeah,
rare.
it ends up medium rare because they'll
Mhm,
keep cooking a little bit.
mhm,
I pull my steaks a little sooner, 120 degrees.
mm, mhm,
So on the rare side of medium rare is how
mhm.
I like them.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
yeah,
And the nutrients, stay more intact
yeah,
otherwise, unless you were to cook a steak to death, which is oftentimes what Costco tells you to do. It's like cook it above this temperature, and Mostly because the way that it's handled, there could be introduction of bacteria, and then they want to
Right,
just cover their butts and all
right,
these things. But
right.
we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah,
But just as far as from a temperature is concerned, and also, yeah, just the differences between grass-fed and grass-finished, how you cook it compared to, yeah, just regular conventionally
yeah,
raised or grain-fed.
yeah.
So I think that's super important too. And from even a wider perspective, there's many people who will be like, "Oh, lamb is too gamey, or chicken is this, or beef is that," and it's like, I wouldn't put a label on it just yet unless you've sourced really, really quality
Yes,
meats because it changes the game
yeah,
from not only, yeah, taste perspective, but also then learn how to cook it at home. You all
yeah,
work really hard to do what you do to get it to the point
yeah.
to make it convenient for us. The least we could
It's
do
heartbreaking.
is look up how to just stick a meat thermometer
Yeah,
in there for a
yeah,
grass-fed,
yeah,
grass-finished steak. So,
yeah,
yeah, so that's a really
yeah,
valuable tip, I think.
yeah. I would suggest too for your folks that follow you, if they're looking for quarters and halves and sides in their area of the
Hmm.
country, their region, um, find out what weights, live weights they are processing their cattle at. For a long time, our goal was 1,000 pounds, and
Mm,
we thought that was good.
mm-hmm,
It wasn't. It wasn't good enough.
mm,
Then we went to 1,200 pounds. It
mm,
wasn't good enough.
mm,
I mean, that our carcass weights went from 450 hanging pounds, 500, 550, 600. I mean, most of the beef boxes you saw going out
mm-hmm,
of here today were 750 to 850 hanging pound carcasses.
mm, mm,
Those are 1,350 to 1,450 pound animals.
mm-hmm,
Takes longer. That is,
mm,
that's why we are, why we're not in Costco,
mm, mm-hmm,
because they don't want to pay for our beef.
mm-hmm.
It's better, it's better tasting, cleaner beef.
So the lighter the weight, then it's
Tougher, less marbled,
tougher, less marbled.
and
Okay,
can
so that.
have some of that grassy taste that some
Mm,
people experience as gamey. I think when
mm-hmm,
people say gamey, that's what they're talking about.
mm,
Grass-fed does have a little minty flavor in
mm,
the back of your mouth sometimes.
mm,
That's the grass.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, but there's such a big beefy flavor
mm-hmm,
to it.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Interesting. And do you think too the gaminess also could come from um, hormones? Like the stress level of the animal
yeah,
from, I guess they're the days when they are before headed to the
yeah,
processor. So I know you guys have actually a pretty short distance to your processor
yeah,
from here.
yeah. That's the
So do you want to
pasture.
talk a little bit about, and it's not really uh, a sought out, or I guess it is. Everybody's still kind of interested in how the end of life goes for the
Yeah,
animal, but maybe it's not like, I guess it's a little sensitive topic, but I think it's important to still talk about. Do you want to
yeah,
share that?
yeah, sure. So one of the things I would try to educate people on
Hmm.
is that if an animal was stressed when it was slaughtered,
Hmm.
there is a copper taste to the beef
Mm,
that it gets on the back corners of your tongue.
mm,
And I can tell in the rare occasions when I'm out at a restaurant or someone else's house and they're serving store-bought beef, I can tell whether that animal was stressed when it died. And so there's actually a flavor impact that happens from that,
mm,
besides the fact that the animal was stressed when it was killed.
mhm,
And so we work with a small processing facility in Kersey, Colorado. It's a
mhm,
family run operation. Every Tuesday we take cattle up there. Those are our animals up there.
mhm.
That's our day with them.
That's the only day,
Yep.
right? That's
Yep.
what, and I, talked to a lot of ranchers too as well, and that's, I mean, some that have made mistakes in the past and working with just like, these horror stories from processors. So this is also like a major big step that takes a lot of
Huge.
time and effort to source processors because it's like, just like I'm trying to, or just, everybody as well is trying to find the best beef for their lifestyle from a transparency perspective. Can you trust them? And it's the same way as ranchers are to their relationships with their
Absolutely.
processors. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it took us a while to find
Hmm.
this folks, and been a really great partnership.
I love
And they're
that.
not perfect either, but they stand behind their stuff,
Right.
when something comes and If somebody said I was supposed to have those 2 inches cut, thick cut, and they're an inch cut, we replace them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we work together on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But how they kill the animals, there are hot prods there, but only if there's an emergency, if there's an animal safety issue
Mm-hmm.
or a personnel safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the part of the process of what they do. That is a huge piece in processing and creating stress in the animals. It's very low stress. They're off. They're in small pens. They have food. They have water. They're moved in one at a time
Mm-hmm.
into a kill chute that has solid sides.
Mm-hmm.
They're standing there. They're calm. Someone comes from above, and it looks like a large kind of like gun.
Mm-hmm.
Like it looks almost like a construction piece of equipment,
Mm-hmm.
but it drives a bolt into their brain.
Mm-hmm.
The bolt is in, it's out. They are alive, and they are dead.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no suffering. There's no flopping around. I've been there 100 times,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, it is. We are so humane to these animals. We're more humane to the animals, truthfully, really across the board, than we are to people
Mm-hmm.
at end of life, honestly.
Mm.
And so
I
it,
could go down that rabbit
yeah,
hole too. Yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
I could agree with
But
that.
if they're stressed, you can actually taste it. It's that
Mm,
copper penny. It's like literally if you put a copper penny in your mouth, which we all
mm,
did when we were a kid, we know that
mm,
taste.
mm,
What it that's adrenaline. That's
mm.
adrenaline in the
Wow.
system. Yeah.
Is there such thing as a beef sommelier?
I don't know, but we need to make one because I think that's what we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially like the more and more, connected you are with your food, and then it's like, oh, maybe, I can taste a little, I don't know, like alfalfa,
This
like the
burger, this
perfect.
steak, it's playful, it's rambunctious.
Yeah.
It had a good attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. A little bit of rebellion, I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
no, cool. Cool. Well, thank you. Yeah, so much for sharing that
You bet.
process and just being open and transparent and just, yeah, thank you for being here as another resource for people to come to. And also for sharing your knowledge, that's really important as well. I think that there are lots that can be like, I want to hold all the secrets too. And, I don't think that, I mean, whatever, like to each their own, but I just
There's
think
room
it's
for
really,
everybody.
hmm
There's room for everybody,
yeah.
and we need to feed a lot of people. And the
Hmm.
more folks who know how to do it in ways that are more sustainable for the planet, sustainable
Hmm.
for their community, and sustainable for the animals, it's a good thing.
Hmm. Cool.
That's what we want to. That's what we want to. That's a good legacy.
Hmm. I like that. Well, thanks again so much for being
Thank
here.
you. Thanks for being
And
here.
yeah, of course. And where can we find, I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit throughout, but as far as like your online presence, like, whether they want to either buy your beef or just follow you or just like even research, get more resources, do you have a YouTube channel where we can learn more from you?
We
Where
have
can we
some
find?
on YouTube. Pretty big presence on Facebook, on Instagram,
Okay.
and a little bit on TikTok, and then the
Hmm.
website flyingbeebar.com. We're not obnoxious with emails. If you get on our email list,
Yeah.
we're pretty judicious about that.
Hmm.
We do. There's a new customer, 10% off code you can get there if you go
Hmm.
there the first time, and we
Cool.
we run giveaways sometimes too,
Hmm.
and those kinds of things. Trying to build our email list and build our community. Find other like-minded folks that want what we are producing. We think there's a lot of those people out there.
Hmm.
We're sure there are,
Hmm.
but making these connections, and it's a big deal. It's a big check to write if you're going to buy half a beef. And so
Right.
that's why we, buy a couple steaks, buy 5 pounds of ground beef, and
Hmm.
give it a try.
Hmm. And that's, yeah, so a la carte is for sure a good way to taste test. But when you do buy the quarter cow or whatnot, yes, it's a big check to write in the
Yeah.
beginning. But I
Yeah.
also think over time it's a
Yeah.
pretty economical choice,
Yeah. It,
you know.
it, it absolutely is. And now with the grocery store prices getting where they're at, we're really just a touch over them really now.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
And then,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
also just some of the things finding out more and more that, the 1 ounce, or sorry, the 16-ounce ground beef packet that you're getting in the store from a conventionally raised or, yeah, beef that's not like your sort of gold standard regenerative
Yeah.
farm, the actual take home after the whole cooking process of like the ounce
Yeah.
in what you're purchasing and actually consuming is far different. And that you can find on my Instagram that I did kind of the other day, that comparison.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Great
truthful,
point.
you know, what do
Yeah.
you want? Like, you
Yeah.
know, honesty, and sure, maybe a little bit costly up front, but I think long term,
Yeah.
I think regenerative wins. 100% grass fed, grass
Yeah.
finished.
Well, that's without even folding in the health outcomes, the cost of negative health
Right.
outcomes.
Yeah, the micronutrients. Haven't even
Yeah.
put the value of the
Yeah.
micronutrients
Yeah.
yet. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so
Great.
much for being
Thank you.
here.
Thanks for
Yes.
coming out and
Thank
visiting.
you.
Appreciate
Yes.
it.
And go ahead and find their information down below. We hope that you just come check them out. Thanks for being here. Bye.